Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 2023 Zaleski Sports Football Coaches Preview Show. Jason Zaleski, Dan Ross, and Dan said I couldn't sit still before we came on. I'm excited, man. We've got a really good show for you here today. Again, Jason Zaleski, Dan Ross. We've got, I don't know how many coaches, a lot of coaches that are going to be on this show. We're going to have telephone conversations with coaches all across the state, from Kaukauna to New Richmond and everywhere in between. We've also got a special presentation coming from WIAA Football Commissioner Tom Shafranski. With Sportsnet's Travis Wilson is going to be on the show, and others.
Wow.
Oh, this is big time, Dan.
I like it.
This is big time. So before we get to Tom, you've had a chance to sleep since last night?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little. Both of us are on a couple hours of sleep. What are kind of your thoughts from the overnight session that we had?
Yeah, we were here late. I don't think we got out of here until we were leaving with the bar crowd. Here we got bars all around us. We were literally leaving with the bar patrons.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm not part of that.
No, not at all. But people are yelling in the streets and stuff. Yeah, it was really interesting. We did the exact process of what the WIAA does. We were here late. We were fumbling probably the same way that the WIAA did, and it was an eye-opening process in my mind. And I think that today, as is typical, when brackets are released, there's a lot of criticism by fans and coaches and stuff, and just going through that process, I feel for the administration a little bit because it's a hard job, and that's not even talking about maps and stuff.
Thankless job.
Yeah,
thankless
really
job for sure. So, okay, well, we had a chance earlier today to talk with WIAA Football Commissioner Tom Shafranski. We talked to Tom about everything that these folks want to know about, the seeding process, the brackets, the maps, and Tom tells all. Let's watch. Our playoff coaches show continues. We take a quick break and talk to WIAA's Tom Shafranski, football commissioner is the label I give you, Tom, but yeah, first, let's just talk about the night last night. Just kind of help us paint a picture of the scene from, 10 p.m. till 2 in the morning. Help us know what that was like.
Wow, that might take us the whole hour here, and I'm not going to do that for you. But thanks for the kind label. A lot of people have other names that they're calling and so forth. But it is a very exciting night. First of all, for our office, we have about 8 people who help us in the office and come in starting at about 9:30 to make sure that we get all of the scores. We always feel as though, and I want you to know, last night was the best that we've ever had. We probably only had to check on maybe about 15 scores last night. So by about 10:05, we had all the scores in for both 8-player and for 11-player. And as well as I do, years ago, we would have to call for every score that was played on a Friday night so that we had that ready to go so that we could create that field. And that really is our next move out of all of this. What we have to do is take every single score, both for 8-player, and we usually do 8-player first because we're able to, some of those games are a little bit earlier in the day, and some of them get done just a bit sooner. So we take 8-player and generally run that, and then follow that with the 11-player to identify the field. We need to get those 16 teams for 8-player and the 224 for 11-player identified, and we have to make sure that we have that right. And that is a time-consuming task. Now, last night, for instance, it took us a little bit more. We had a couple of very unusual things that have never happened to us, where we had dual posting of scores that showed up on us, and we had to work through all of that. But we also have to make sure of all the criteria being precisely right. It is extremely important to us. That really is our tournament job, to identify those 224. And quite frankly, we have had no complaints this year at all, and in recent years, regarding the 224 tournament or the 16 that are being selected. It's kind of funny. Years and years ago, I can recall that cutoff line really was debated. But now schools, since we're at 224, they really know where they stand, and they've learned what that criteria is that gets them in and what just barely gets them out. And I think that that has really worked for us. So once we establish the field with everything, and by the way, next year we'll be looking at a competitive balance to add into there. So it's very, for everyone listening and paying attention, if you think this year was complicated, next year is going to be a whole new world for everyone. And but we take that then, and then we have to start running our seeds through there. Once we do that. Now, in a separate room, what we are doing is we're taking the 224 and identifying what are the divisional breakdowns of that, the 7 divisions for 11-player football by enrollment, and then who are the UBCs and the conference champions, and the UBCs are the unbeaten conference champions, so that they are separated out. The coaches have asked us over the years to separate out those two and try to divide them up. And so that's why people get a little skewed when it comes to, as far as planning, how are these circles essentially going to get drawn. It's a special request that's been granted by school administrators for the football coaches. Then with the seeding portion, now remember, this truly is the coaches. The coaches are the ones who have established a formula for deciding the seeding formula for determining each of the 8 spots within those I'll call them regionals that they're going to play. And so getting that all taken care of is a computerized process that then we come back to, and we plug them into the brackets according to that seeding. So sorry to take 10 minutes to explain all of that. I was hoping to do it in about 6, but got carried away.
I think we did pretty good there. Let's talk about the seeding process. This is actually the 4th year that your group has used the numerical values. 2020 was year 1, kind of a dry run, if you will.
Yes.
And now the 3rd year. How do you evaluate how that process has gone over the last few years?
Well, if you don't mind, because you and I go way back, and we remember when our friends Matt Oddie and Don Herman and Doug Chickering, and boy, they were great at getting this started, because keep in mind, these are the things that prevented football playoffs from occurring until the 1970s. And the key thing back then was, geography was all that really, geography and alphabet were all that really were used. And people got so angry, we can't do this, you just can't keep doing that. They were right. And so it evolved where there were little criteria that started to develop to that. And it led to, in the early 2000s, coaches being allowed to do the seeding and actually have seeding meetings. You and I can recall those being held on Saturday mornings, early Saturday afternoons, and everybody got upset and everybody started pointing fingers at everyone. And keep in mind, as I lead into this, again, the real key to us is identifying that 224 who deserve to be in that tournament. That really is the important thing. And I'm not saying that seeding isn't important, and I've done way too much of it in sports like tennis and everything else, and this certainly applies with football. But doing a statewide seeding program and doing it the way that we do it now, to be able to evaluate really each and every team, all 224 in one way or another, is a pretty impressive way of doing things. Not perfect by any means. Certainly complicated, certainly has its flaws to it, but the coaches are the ones who have come up with a formula that we take, have applied it. We are the voice of the coaches as far as the seeding goes. They get to look at it every year, modify it, and do as they wish. But they really have done a pretty good job. I think the main thing that I'm just going to say is they do it through strength of schedule. That's where their main emphasis comes in. It is not necessarily through head-to-head play. And a lot of people struggle with that, but that really, on a statewide basis, it doesn't always give you a higher seed to the team that you think has won. And there are numerous cases and examples of that you and I can point out, but everybody's pointing them out through all of their posts and everything. So just go online, you can see all of that. all of that is easily recognized. But what happens is that from a general perspective and on a statewide perspective, there is a numeric value that does get placed with each and every team within that grouping of 8 so that they can be compared. And that's a pretty interesting way of doing things. And that really, maybe it doesn't put them exactly where they should be, but for the most part, in a general term, they are in the general area of where they should be.
Yeah, I like the way that you put that before, and I think that's what folks maybe misunderstand the most is you and your group in a military sense are on the front line, and the captains that are giving the orders are the coaches around the state that years ago had said, this is the process that we want. I want to talk about the map drawing process a little bit now.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the UBCs. I looked to Division 7 in
Yep.
that, they call it the northwestern portion of the bracket. And we've got 2 UBCs there, Boyceville and Edgar. Is that just a matter of not enough room on the map to sort them all out? Or what kind of consideration went into maybe that one specifically?
Yeah, great question that way. As we do that, again, going back to our discussion there, identifying those UBC and conference championships is really important, especially to our coaches. And that's something that they have impressed upon us with all of the discussions we have had over the years. Consequently, the school administrators have said, yes, in this particular case, what we need to do for football is do our best to divide them out equitably amongst the 4 sectionals that are going to be created. Okay, so what ends up happening out of those is, remember, we're going to have a group out of the Northwest. We're going to have basically a group out of the Northeast. Now, a lot of times it doesn't look that way at all, but there is an element to this with each of these maps, no matter what division. One for the Southwest and one for the Southeast that are going to, and those are the groupings, the 8-team groupings for each division that are going to play out. Now, when we do that, we try to divide up. Let's just say that we have 9, for instance, UBCs and conference championships. We try to divide that up so that there are 2 in each and perhaps 3 in one of them. Okay, that would make up for our 9, so that it's balanced as best that can play out. And we actually have coaches in the room, in our bunker, if you will, with us that are monitoring that, checking that over, and working with us so that we get that the best we can. And we also are looking at previous maps. We're looking at past precedents and things that we may have done. All of those things are coming into play so that we're trying to create a consistent element for each division within the state.
And then another map type question, Division 2 looks like a very powerful football grouping this year all across the state. A lot of eyeballs are going to be on a lot of those teams as they've really presented themselves throughout the year as some very competitive teams this particular year in Division 2. And as we look at the map, we see teams like Monona Grove and Sun Prairie East in that Madison area having to drive past Kettle Moraine on their way to the lake shore. And so tell us about that, where that map kind of dips and curls like an Italian boot on the map. Yep. And those teams are driving somewhat past each other. How does that part of the map work sometimes?
Yeah, so excellent question with that one. And that was one that we really had to look at and look at about 3 or 4 different times before we approved of that one moving forward. And I'd also start out with ones like Division 5, because a comparison can be made there where there's only one conference champion who actually is in Division 5. A very interesting, unique situation that we haven't seen before, at least in those numbers. And then in Division 2, very, very strong teams all the way along. And what we found was it was best that keeping a little boot to the north side of Milwaukee and in and around that north side, but avoiding Homestead, because Homestead really was one of the, I believe they were a conference champion, and so they needed to go to that northern Fox Valley area and go north rather than south as in a lot of years. And that those little things can happen. And in that way, we could distribute the strength of that Division 2 championship tournament much better.
Great answers, Tom. Again, we're visiting with WIAA Football Commissioner Tom Shafranski. Tom, I want to give you the last word here. What else do you want people to know about the work that you and your team put in, not only last night, but all season long?
Well, Jason, I think it's like you. This is about love of the game of football. It really is. And the care and concern that people put in, I just can't tell you the deep gratitude that I have for everybody who helps us contribute. And I want you to know, we look at the information that you're providing and those things we use those things as resources. The element I think that people just have to keep trying to look at is educating themselves on the specific elements that we have for determining the field, who qualifies in that criteria, and then which is all public knowledge. It is all out there. And we also provide information on the seating. And when you get to doing a state tournament like this, I'm not trying to make any excuses for anything. As I said, we aren't perfect, but it is a huge task to be able to pull that all together and be able to get everybody exactly where they would like to be. Everyone has their own direction that they would like to go, and the route that they see as being best for them. Our job is simply to create what ends up being the route that takes them to a state championship. And the simple answer to it all is keep winning and you're going to be in it. So that's what I wish for every single team that's out there, that they just keep winning, because I feel this is really, it's really a precious part of the culture of the state of Wisconsin. And you do a great job of bringing that forward. So do so many people in making this happen. Just enjoy this ride, because it's really special.
240 teams, 8 gold balls, and it all happens over the course of the next 5 weeks. So we're all going to enjoy it. Tom, thank you so much for your time today.
Anytime, Jason. You bet. Thanks for having me.
All right, back here to the studio again. Big thanks to WIAA Football Commissioner Tom Shafranski for filling us in. Dan, we learned a lot there.
Yeah, he was really open and honest, and he really walked through the process. That was really good stuff. All
right, we're going to talk to Abbotsford Falcon head coach Jake Knappmiller. Jake, congratulations. Your Falcons are in the playoffs again in 2023.
Yeah, thank you. It's awesome to get another game, and we're pretty happy to be in the situation we're in with a 2 seed, and just happy for our kids, and hopefully they enjoy the experience.
Tell us about, I want to talk to you about your Thursday game, a unique situation to end the regular season. You likely walked into practice on Wednesday and told your guys, guess what, we don't have practice tomorrow. Instead, we have a game. And then you took care of Pittsville. But kind of walk us through that. How did you and the guys handle having that game abruptly move up 24 hours?
Yeah, it was a little different because as a staff, we have some things planned that we're going to go over, maybe a few formations or plays defensively, especially that they don't run very often. And we didn't get an opportunity to do that. So one of the things that we had a discussion today on was, we weren't ready for this or weren't ready for that in the game. And in reflecting, that was something we were going to work on Thursday. And, Pittsville was probably in the same boat, and that's the way we looked at it too.
We take a look at your schedule. You and your other conference counterparts play, perhaps at least for the size of your school. Again, you'll compete in Division VI in the playoffs, but for the size of your school, you compete in one of the toughest conferences in the entire state. How do your conference mates help your guys get ready for the playoff run?
Well, I think our kids understand how good our conference is, and I think that gives them confidence in terms of preparation when we play non-conference teams. And even our non-conference schedule this year, I think everybody we played made playoffs, and so we've been through it. And I think going into this first week, there's not really a lot of talent that we haven't seen in our conference, especially though.
On screen, we'll have Katie go ahead and put the Division VI bracket up. And as we do, the 2-seeded Abbotsford Falcons, again, we're talking to Falcons head coach Jake Knappmiller. The Cadott Hornets come to town, so they make a fairly short drive on Highway 29. Tell us about the preparation process now that you know your opponent and what the next kind of 48 hours looks like as you begin to prepare for Cadott.
Yeah, right. So we exchanged film, obviously, and just getting a feel or a breakdown of what they do on both sides of the ball, tendencies. We already did a quick check of statistics and looking at records and opponents and kind of asking around with coaches and that you've networked with and seeing what their take on them is if they played them. And so today we did the selection show thing with our kids. I had breakfast, and that was kind of a neat experience for them. And then we'll start with the kids here on Monday like a normal game week.
Breakfast, G Coach. Thanks for the invite. Next time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got some really fun kids, especially the offense kind of gets all the glitz and the glamour, but you've got two guys, Fuentes and Castillo, that probably win a race against anybody else in your bracket. How important is it to get your offensive line on track early on Friday and continue to free up space for those guys to get up and down the field?
Yeah, I think our offensive line maybe gets overlooked sometimes with how effective those two guys are. But man, we get them in space and they're pretty fun to watch. Christian had a little bit of an injury bug here for 3 weeks, and his stats definitely took a little bit of a hit on that. But JV has picked it up for him, and our other backs also are averaging, I think, 5 or 6 yards a carry. They just don't get the carries that these guys do, and they haven't had the opportunity to hit those big ones, but they're very consistent, and that allows these two guys to have those open yardage too. But ultimately it goes back to how well we block, and the kids really buy into that team aspect offensively.
Talking to Abbotsford Falcons head coach Jake Knappmiller. Coach, lastly, tell us about the defense, and then maybe tell the folks that are going to go watch that game on Friday that I think my guys need to pick it up in this area defensively against the Cadet Hornets.
Yeah, our defense has not been as good as we've wanted it to, and we talked a little bit about offense and how kids are buying into this, and we're starting to come along defensively with that. We showed lack of discipline and focus at times. We're really capable, and we also show that at times. So we're looking for consistency out of especially our defensive backfield, in showing up on run, being disciplined with their eyes. And really we run really well, and at times we run too well. Our linebackers are Christian Fuentes again and Irvin Aguilar, our sophomores, and then we have a freshman that rotates in, Jesus Reyes, and they have a tendency to overrun a lot of plays. Cadet looks to run a lot of outside run. They actually run the same offense we do, same formation, same plays. So kind of a fun week. I tease my defensive coordinator that we get twice as much offensive time this week because we're on scout team. We're running our own stuff. So we're pretty excited to have this opportunity, though.
The Abbotsford Falcons are the 2 seed. They take on number 7 Cadet on Friday. Coach Jake Knappmiller, best of luck on Friday night.
Hey, thanks, guys.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll turn it over to Dan now on maybe just kind of summarize what Jake had to say and tell us a little bit more about the playoff path for the Abbotsford Falcons.
Yeah, I think Abbotsford got a favorable draw. They were a team that had a couple of conference losses, and given where they're at in the state, getting a 2 seed, I think that's a boon for them. I think it sets the Falcons up for success. You're guaranteed 2 home games if you win the first one. I don't know a lot about Cadet, right?
Right.
But as Coach said, the Merriwood really does set them up, and they played a tough schedule this year. Even though there were some losses in there, it's no shame to lose to Edgar and Colby and Auburndale. Those 3 teams are monster teams this year. So for the Falcons to come in, they're going to be favored the first game. Then they're going to get the winner of Cameron Crandon. That's probably another game that they could definitely pull through. I mean, obviously, if you look, I mean, we're prognosticators because we're in the media, right?
Especially today.
Yeah, especially today. I know that Grantsburg is a tough team. They've been amongst the highest in our seed totals throughout the year. But man, I think that if you told Coach that he was going to be a 2 seed this morning ahead of time, he probably would be absolutely thrilled with that.
Yeah, and you're right. He's got he's got a favorable path.
He does.
Coming through. The winner, I would suspect Abbotsford on a leading edge against Cadott on Friday. I would suspect, and especially in the home situation like that. And then, like you say, the back-to-back home games, then they're going to get whoever the better of between Cameron and Crandon. And on the top half of that bracket, of course, are going to be the Grantsburg Pirates, who are seemingly always looming in the
They're always
playoffs.
there, aren't they?
Yeah, always in the neighborhood.
Yeah. But you know what? The Merriwood, we're going to say it a couple times today.
Yeah.
The Merriwood is probably the marquee conference of that size in the entire state. It's no accident that 5 teams made it, or whatever it was this year. I think 5.
5 of 6. Is that what we came up with?
I think so.
It was just Pittsville. As a matter of fact, I've got the records lined up here. Yeah, just Pittsville, right? Edgar, Auburndale, Colby, Abbotsford, Marathon.
Yeah, it's incredible.
All but Pittsville, and Pittsville in many of those games was right in there too. I mean that was still a good football team, and they just played in one of the toughest conferences in the entire state.
Yeah, they're a 4th place team. This year.
And probably a 1st or 2nd place team in a lot of other area conferences,
including some of the teams they're going to be playing here. Yeah.
All right, Katie is going to tell us. Okay, good. Well, as soon as Coach is ready, we'll go ahead. And I'm being told that we've got Edgar Football's Jerry Sins on the phone with us. Coach, I understand you're at a wedding today. Oh, no, we didn't connect him to the Bluetooth. So, yep, that's all right. We'll stand by here just a little bit. We're going to talk to Coach. Yeah, Coach is at a wedding today. Can you imagine? You get your seed, and then you're dancing in the wedding. Here you go, Coach.
He was at a wedding earlier in the year, too, wasn't he?
I think Coach goes to a wedding once a week. He knows a lot of people. Coach, tell us about the fun of a wedding on a Saturday.
Yeah, it's a former player. Nevin Smith played on our 2009-2010 state championship team. And his dad, Joe Heil, is from town here. And, the wedding and reception is down the Rochholt area.
Okay, yeah, so not too far from here. As a matter of fact, Dan, we may go over to that wedding when we're done and
right.
go see what they've got cooking over there. Coach, congratulations on another successful regular season, a really outstanding season, 8-1 overall, 7-0 in conference, and that has earned you the 2 seed. And I'm sure that a lot of you and the rest of the boys were hoping for the 1 seed. But tell us about your playoff. What you want out of this playoff experience this year?
Well, yeah, we're fine with it. Guys, obviously our goal every year is to win the state championship, and if you're going to win the state championship, well, then you got to play everybody and you got to beat everybody. So it doesn't make a whole lot of difference when you play them or where you play them. The fact of the matter is you have to play them. So we'll get ready. We got Glenwood City coming in, who I think I remember them from our wrestling sectional last February. They had a lot of good athletes. I think they won the sectional. It was either them or Coleman. So I know they got a lot of good athletes. So I think right out of the chute, we're probably going to have a tough game and get by that one. And we may see Regis again, but at least those 2 games are going to be at Edgar.
That's right. First 2 games, should you win on Friday the 20th, are guaranteed to be at home. Coach, I want to step back a little bit into the conference season and talk about something special that your defense has going on. You have not been scored upon since the first quarter of week number 2. Tell us how that's been made possible by the guys on the defense.
Yeah, we just been playing really well. We got a lot of seniors on there, a lot of experience. Our secondary has been solid, hasn't made any mistakes, and the defensive line and linebackers been pretty much, pressuring quarterbacks and stopping the run fairly well. We're kind of switching back and forth from a 43 to a 34, and that's been working pretty good too. So overall, I'm a little surprised that we've done as well as we have. I mean, we haven't given up many first downs, many yards at all in about the last 5 weeks.
Talking to Edgar Football's Jerry Sins, coach, taking a day off today, I'm sure. And then tell us about the next day that you and the guys will be back together, and what's the game plan on Sunday or Monday, whenever that next practice is. What's up next for you and your team?
We'll get together tomorrow afternoon at 5. We'll spend about a half an hour or so going over the marathon film from Friday night, and just talking about the things we did well and the things we maybe can clean up a little bit. And then the last 45 minutes or so, we'll be looking at Glenwood City and their roster and their stats and watching, some video on them. They played my old high school, Elmwood, I believe, in their final game of the season, so that'll be kind of fun to watch that.
And then I'm sure folks in Elmwood and maybe even you might be cheering for an upset over Regis going on at that same time. That'd be fun to play against your old school like that. The game plan and that process for Glenwood City. Let us behind the curtain a little bit and tell us about how you and the coaches go about preparing for a team that maybe some in Central Wisconsin don't know a whole lot about.
Yeah, we played them way back in I believe it was 99, maybe, to get to state. We played them a couple of times right back around, 98, 99, 2000, because my son Jordan was on those teams, and they had a really good quarterback by the name of Nick Ullman, and then those two guys went on to play together at Stout as teammates. But we haven't played them since then, so it's been probably 22 years since we played them.
Okay, so we're in for a treat. I know the fire in the south end zone is going to be high and hot, and a lot of folks coming out to watch you and the guys play. You got a wedding, so we're going to let you get back to that. Coach, best of luck in the playoffs.
Thank you very much, Jason.
All right, you're welcome. There he was. He's a walking encyclopedia, Dan, of names and knowledge from any given year. Coach Jerry Sins. How about that?
Yeah, we played Glenwood City about 25 years ago. The starting quarterback was this guy. We played him in a state semifinal or something along those lines. Coach Sins has himself quite a team this year. And we kind of knew that going into the season, which is the reason why they're the Hard Knocks team this year.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions about Edgar football in any way, we've been covering them. Practices, games throughout the entire season. And I do like Coach Sins for a lot of reasons, but it would be really easy for him to come on the air today and air some grievances about we haven't given up a point in almost 8 games.
Yeah, over a month. We're
in the toughest conference in the area. How are we a 2? But no, that's not Coach. Right? He comes in and says, we got to beat everybody. What difference does it make?
Going to have to beat, Boyceville or Regis anyway, or whoever it might be. And look, now we won't have to take a road trip, Dan, but there's those Hurley North Stars kind of looming off in the distance. Dan and I spent almost half a football season a couple of years ago in Hurley, having a great well, we were there for a couple of games anyway. It seemed like, with the travel there and back, it's half of a football season just to get there.
Yeah.
To Hurley.
It seems that way.
But Hurley is in the group. We're going to move back to we're going to move for the first time, I should say, to Division 5, and we're going to bring in Colby Hornet head coach Jim Hagan. Coach, congratulations on a great regular season.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you. It certainly wasn't the way we wanted to end last night against Auburndale, but nevertheless, we're just happy to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, we're going to talk to Auburndale's head coach Jay Anderson. That win, though, Coach, you may have in a way helped Auburndale attain the number 1 seed, but that's a different conversation for a different day behind an abacus and a slide ruler and some other things to do with math.
He owes you a beer. He definitely owes you a beer.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Tell us. You and I talked before the season began, and. Tell us a little bit remind our audience anyway, about some of your guys and maybe a couple of those seniors that really helped on the field this year.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to the team that we had, this year, and I'm really proud of the way they've responded this year, to go, 7-2, in a tough conference, and I think it was a little difficult for us early in the year. In the second game of the year, we probably lost what I would say is our best player, and Ivan Hamer, our starting fullback and outside linebacker. And Ivan is just one of those great running backs who we were looking so forward to watching throughout the year. And when he got hurt, he was up at almost 300 yards rushing already and 6 touchdowns in the first game and a half. And when we lost him, I thought, oh boy, I'm not really sure how our guys are going to respond and how we're going to do after that. But our guys rallied and we hung in there. And so far, again, 7-2. That's something to be proud of. Some of our other seniors, have really stepped up, like a guy like Braxton Meyer on the offense and defensive line. Moises Fuentes, he's not a very big kid, only 5'5", but 180 some pounds, but plays with the heart. And Luis Novarajas, he's one of our big defensive tackles. He's done a really nice job for us. Frankie Castro, Cooper Clements, and those are just some guys that have really stepped up and helped us, achieve that nice record of 7-2.
Take a look at the bracket on screen now, Coach. Your Division 5 alignment. Again, you are the number 1 seed. That is a great achievement. And we joked a little bit about Auburndale, yet a lot of your success is yours, and it's also shared with a really tough conference. 5 of the 6 teams in your conference are in the playoffs. Just talk about your conference mates and how they help you and your team get stronger as the year goes on.
Certainly, like we talked about, the Merriwood Conference in any given year is a very, very, very good conference. And obviously Edgar was the cream of the crop this year, without a doubt. They're so athletic and fast and physical. And, we played them, I think, fairly good, when we met them back in week 5, I believe. And, at that time, we had 2 starters out, and not to make any excuses, and that didn't make it any easier for us, but I thought we hung in there the best that we could against those guys. And yeah, when you get 5 teams, that make it to the playoffs, I mean, Abbotsford is a very good football team, and Auburndale is a very good football team. And, hats off to Marathon for making it. And, I'm trying to think who's the other team that has made it from the conference. But yeah, I mean, it's week in and week out. You got to play your best in order to win. And, just really looking forward to seeing how all the other teams in our conference fare throughout the playoffs.
Edgar, Auburndale, yourself, Abbotsford, Marathon. That's 5 of the 6.
Yeah,
and Pittsville was a strong team too. And in a different conference, Pittsville's probably talking about who they're going to play on Friday in the playoffs also. Coach, again, we're talking to Colby Hornets head coach Jim Hagan. Coach, we were here until about 2 a.m. Last night going through going through all the tie-breaking procedures so we could.
Well, I was up till 2 a.m. too, but I wasn't, for different reasons. I just couldn't sleep after the loss.
Well, next year if that happens, we'll have you over here and you can help us and take your mind off of things maybe.
Thanks.
But we were going through the tie-breaking procedures and determining the playoff qualifying field. And your opponent, Durand, Arkansas, according to the tie-breaking procedures, was one of the last teams.
They were.
They
were one of the last ones.
Yeah, and so, see, you've got that now you've got that knowledge, but yet I want to know from you, how do you help your guys? Because they're going to see an 8 on that other side. Right? Maybe they won't hear this interview, but they're going to see an 8. And your job is still to tell them, we've got to take this seriously because they're still a playoff team, and they could still get us.
Yeah, without a doubt. First and foremost, just looking back at the playoff brackets when I was watching it this morning on TV. I mean, I was pretty shocked at the seed that we got. I'm not going to lie about that. When I saw our name pop up on the screen and my wife was sitting next to me, I'm like, what? And we'll take it. Obviously, I'm not going to call the WIAA and complain. But very surprised, especially after we lost, to Auburndale last night. So on the bus ride home, I'm thinking, boy, I hope we can at least get a 4 seed or something like that. At least get one home game, and I'm thinking, okay, if we get a 5 or something, boy, where are we going to travel? So very happy, obviously, to be number 1. But yeah, you're right. Our players could potentially look at that. We're playing the 8 seed, not a big deal. But no, it is our job as coaches to make sure and remind them constantly about, in the playoffs, anything can happen on any given night. And we got to prepare like we would any other team. Durand is going to be very well coached. I'm friends with Rodney Rosemeyer, just because there's such a connection with the Rosemeyer family and myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of respect for him and what he's done with that program over the years. So, I think our guys, don't need much motivation after the way we played last night. You know, I think they were pretty defeated after the game. They were down in the dumps. So I think they realize that all it takes is one bad night and some turnovers like we had last night. I mean, give Auburndale credit, you know, but we had 3 turnovers last night and just shot ourselves in the foot numerous times. I think they understand the importance of being focused in practice and having a good week of practice. And you know, you win and you move on, and you lose and your season's over. And for these seniors, I don't think they're ready for it to end yet.
The other thing, too, perhaps, Coach, maybe, and hopefully it doesn't happen, but if your team were to experience another monsoon-type game, you'd have that experience from last night under your belt. Again, talking to Colby Hornets head coach Jim Hagan. Coach, we'll let you off with this one. You are the 1 seed, which means you keep winning, you keep playing at home. I want to give you the opportunity now to tell your home fans to come in and pack the stands and make sure that you get through that home field advantage successfully.
Yeah, you know, and I've been very, very happy over the past many years here at Colby with our fan support. You know, our community is very supportive of all athletics and football in particular. And I would expect a nice crowd on next Friday night, you know, at the home game. And we always have a nice student section. You know, they always dress a certain way, whether it's a white or they wear pink or, you know, whatever it is. And it's just such a great atmosphere at Colby. And we are looking forward to hosting, and hopefully we can host for quite a few Fridays in a row.
Coach, I think it'd be fun if you chipped in on one of those theme nights and you got yourself dolled up in the neon or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen, but I'm a pretty conservative kind of guy. So.
All right. Well, Coach, best of luck. Again, that was Colby Hornets head football coach Jim Hagan. Coach, best of luck come Friday night.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
All right, Dan, there we go. The Colby Hornets, and you know, Coach Hagan's one of the best in the area, maybe the best in the state. Just a good guy through and through. A football knowledge, a wealth of knowledge from the football part of it, and you know, I'll tell him he's probably does have an easy game on Friday night, but after that it gets tough.
Yeah, you know, these brackets and the divisions, we don't know about them until last night or this morning because it depends on the enrollment in that.
I think we got there about 1:15.
Yeah.
We did. I mean, honestly, about 1:15 we had that figured out.
Yeah, and, you know, and they're grouped geographically. So in the area, they're the best Division 5 team around, right? So yeah, a 2-loss team, as it were. But if you're better than every other team in the area, then you deserve the number 1 seed. Looking at the bracket, I know that you have some history with some of these schools.
I do.
The 2 seed.
Well, they have history with me, maybe more so.
Yeah, probably.
I kind of overlook them.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Maple Northwestern is in the bracket, the 8-team regional, as the director said.
You can't go further north of Maple than falling in the Lake Superior. Yeah.
So if the brackets hold true to form, that level 3 game will be at Colby, and that is going to be a huge benefit for the Hornets this year if it were to play out that way.
Yeah, 3 hours on a bus.
Yeah.
3 hours on a bus. Easy 3 hours, maybe 3.5.
Yeah, and a potential second-round game with upcoming Neilsville-Granton. They've had a really good season. I don't know if we're talking to their coach today, but probably better than expected. But, man, Colby's really good. Like, they have a chance to take this thing deep.
Well, you've heard me talk to all the Marywood coaches about their conference affiliation, and I'm going to ask still, we're going to talk to Jay Anderson later on about that, but that conference really prepares these teams for the playoffs. I mean, all those obviously 5 or 6 are in the playoffs, so they're playoff caliber, but those are playoff atmosphere games at the same time.
Yeah, and if you look at the bottom half of that bracket, which it's outside our group of 8, we have some other local teams that we could have a real spicy level 4 game. Yeah,
you got Wittenberg-Burnhamwood is the 1, Southern Door is the 2, Amherst is the 4. Amherst is always a playoff-capable team. And, a lot to look forward to there. As we're going to move now to Division 1 as we bring in Spash Panthers head football coach Ryan Eigenberger. Coach, congratulations on a great regular season.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for joining. I know we promised about 10 minutes, so we're trying to keep everybody on task here today. We wish we could talk to all of you for about an hour because I know you've got an hour's worth of things to say about your team. But let's just talk about that. you played a tough non-conference schedule. You were 1-1 in your non-conference games, and then the Valley Football Association is always a challenge. Just talk about kind of the trials and tribulations, especially in those first few weeks with your guys.
Yeah, I mean, we want to challenge ourselves in those games and kind of use that as a test and as a great place for us to build on. And I think those games really provided that for us. It's awesome to play a team like McWanago week one, and like I said, really see where you're at, and then get another great test with Hudson. I think it prepared us for the rest of the season, and to go into the conference schedule. Luckily or fortunately on a good note after beating Hudson, but ready for the battles that we faced during the conference season.
Again, talking to Spash Panthers head football coach Ryan Eigenberger. Coach, now we'll look to the playoffs, a 3 seed, and I could imagine some talk in the locker room or around, if you were all had watch parties or whatever it might have been happening, that the 3 seed, that doesn't seem high enough. How does the 3 seed strike you?
Well, I thought it was the lowest we could get, or the highest we could get, or however you want to think about it. So we were talking about it a little bit. We said we could be a 3 because you never know what's going to happen. And either way, our mentality is, if you want to continue playing, you have to beat whatever team shows up. So it doesn't matter. We're just ready. We can't control the seedings. We can't control those things. We just can control our preparation and what we put into trying to win each week.
All right, and then when the playoffs begin, we got your bracket on the screen right now, Coach. You've got a familiar face on the other side in the Wausau West Warriors. I've got your schedule up here. 27-7 back on September 22nd. How do you get your guys organized for that kind of a repeat performance come Friday night?
Well, Wausau West is a great school and a great program. So we know that they're going to be coming out to battle, and we're excited to play them again. Just for that, I think it's fun to play a team like that. That guys get excited for. They're excited to play at Wausau West too, and it's great coaching staff there, and Coach Johnson does a really good job. So we're excited. We think our guys are ready to have another great game and want that competition. They want to play the best teams, and that's why, like we talked about, that's why we were excited to play our first 2 games of the year, and to be able to face another high quality opponent here, which obviously everyone is in the playoffs, but one that you kind of know, it adds a little bit of edge to it in a good way, where it's a good competitive level with a lot of players that respect each other. We had a good game with each other with 2 top conference teams. There wasn't any fighting, no pushing, no shoving. It just was 2 teams competing, and that's what you want on Friday night.
Coach, we said you're the 3 seed taking on number 6 Wausau West on October 20th. Being the 3, that means you're guaranteed, barring an upset, you're guaranteed just the 1 home game. How will you present that to your guys about perhaps playing, especially your seniors, playing on Gerke Field one last time?
Yeah, and we just had our senior night last night, and we talked about that last night too. We said, well, hopefully at least we were thinking at top 4 seed where we can host one more time, but we do our senior night stuff and talk about, we're fortunate enough to hopefully be hosting again. And obviously we have that opportunity for just one more, but to just make the most of that opportunity, because Gerke's a special place to play games. It's almost a century old now. So it's got a lot of history to it. So just being a part of that, our players really respect that. And I think they're excited to play one more time out there, and you never know, hopefully a few more times, but they're going to make the most of that opportunity. We've had great fans at our games. We've packed those stands, and Friday should be more of the same.
Obviously, the bulk of your preparation, and maybe you're going to tell me all of it, but I'll fill in the blank for you. The bulk of your preparation is going to be on Wausau West. But if you should win, and of course the moms, dads are going to be cheering for Appleton North. They're going to cheering for the Lightning to beat the Papermakers at that same time. So maybe you can grab one more home game. But how much of the rest of that bracket do you kind of just take a peek at over the next few days?
Yeah, I think we're familiar with a few of those teams. We scrimmaged with Appleton North. We played Kimberly. We played them last year, but obviously in the past. We played Hudson already, so we're familiar with the teams, the DC Everest. So we do have some familiarity there, and we're not going to look ahead to anything, obviously, but we think it's a really competitive sectional for us to be a part of, and we're fortunate enough to get that 3 seed in it, and excited to have the opportunity to play against some really high quality opponents here.
Talking to Spash football head coach Ryan Eigenberger. Coach, we'll let you off with this one. Your team offensively, from a fan standpoint, has been fun to watch. The guys get up and down the field. You let them play, the entire field, left to right, north to south. But in the playoffs, though, sometimes that defense has got to make some points during that game, with that intensity. And so, how much are you going to have to rely on your defense as the playoffs begin?
Well, we've relied on them all year. I mean, they've just been lights out. We've given up in conference here. It's about 130 yards per game. I mean, they've just been lights out all year long, and they just are a bunch of playmakers. We talk about, we don't have anybody that's going to college to play anywhere. I don't know. Nobody's offered any of these guys, or nobody's asked them to play on a team, and we just won conference, and like I said, we have some pretty phenomenal defensive stats. We have some pretty good offensive stats, and our guys just buy into that. We continue to have that mentality. We think a lot of teams overlook us, and are kind of surprised then when we come out and we play as physical as we do. But our defense and our offensive line really set the tone. They let everyone know that, hey, you're in for a battle when you're coming to play us. Or we're coming to you to play, and I know the defense will continue to do that. They're just playmakers, and I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint any one player. I think it's all 11 of them that just fly around. They have some fun, and they really believe in each other.
Coach, Gerke Field's going to be hopping on Friday night. Wausau not being that far away, they're going to fill up the stands. I know your families and supporters are going to fill up the stands. We're really looking forward to watching that game. Best of luck on Friday night.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, there he was, Spash Panthers head football coach Ryan Eigenberger. Dan, they've got a tough road through the playoffs, but they're a tough team.
Yeah, they are a really good team. It is not easy to go undefeated in the conference, in this particular conference, right? And every Friday night we feature the conference. We have those games on all the time, right? It's the Division I conference that are by us, so you think it's the best football, best athletes, more enrollment. I know that Wausau West has been hurt, right? So it's not quite the same Warrior team as
missing component offensively. Yep.
Yeah. That being said, Stevens Point's been the best team in the conference the entire season.
Really have been.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And a touchdown or two better than everybody else. So Spash didn't have a lot of really close calls, especially the second half of the conference schedule. Looking at what they have, I mean, we know that Appleton North is a great team, and that's a 7 seed. It's pretty crazy.
They were in first place up until the start of Week 8. Just 2 weeks ago, they were the first place team in the Fox Valley Association, and so they're going to give Kimberly all the papermakers want.
Kimberly just played them, and I think it was a pretty tight game, if I remember correctly.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to move to Division II, Mr. Dan Ross, and we're going to talk to Kaukauna Galloping Ghosts head football coach Matt Binsfeld. Coach, congratulations on the number 1 seed.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. That went as well as it possibly could be, and when you're 6-1 in conference, you don't know what you're going to get and all that kind of stuff. So we're pretty happy with it.
Yeah, it's quite an accomplishment, and it's what it really is. It's a reward for all the work through those 9 games of your regular season. Just if you could, just reflect on those 9 games and how that has led to this really good opportunity.
Well, it's been, I don't know how long I've been a head coach. I think maybe 13 years or something like that. But this is really a memorable season in terms of the competitive games we've had to play from start to finish. West Superior in week 2 was a barn burner, was a really fun game against a great team. And that came down to the very last play kind of thing. And then our conference play was the same. I mean, Neenah, Appleton North, Kimberly, all of those games were tight games. We're going through a season where we're looking up and down the bench, and we haven't had games where either we were up by a ton or down by a ton this year because we were pretty competitive with everybody. So there's kids on our team who haven't played very much, and that usually doesn't happen. But it's been a wild ride. Our kids have been there with us through all of it, through comebacks and all kinds of things to make it happen. But it's been a crazy year, but a really fun one too.
Coach, the number one seed is like I said, it's a great accomplishment. This is now the fourth year. At the start of our show, we had football commissioner Tom Shafranski on. He was talking about the seed process and the map process, and that seed process is really interesting to us. It's a mathematical formula that the Coaches Association agreed on a number of years ago, and one part it really relies on is strength of schedule and how you can improve. Or you in particular, and other coaches though too, but for your team, you improve that by your non-conference schedule. You played West Appear, who you mentioned, who is a playoff team, and then you also played the Ashwaubenon Jaguars. And as we were going through our elimination process last night to determine the 224, Ashwaubenon was 226. So they were just on the cusp. So tell us about that and why it's so important now that you know, I'm sure you know about that seed process, to make sure that you've got what you think are going to be quality teams in weeks 1 and 2.
Yeah, well, it certainly did end up having a big impact on us. And I want to say this, I don't think it's common knowledge that all the coaches in the state truly understand the formula. And I want to thank you guys because I was listening to your show from earlier this week and I learned some things too, right? So I think there's some clarity that could be put out there a little bit more on the weight to all these kind of things and things like that, because most of the coaches that I talk to don't have a full grasp of it. But obviously those games help you when you win. I think if you go back to Appleton North a few years ago playing Franklin, when they had to play them twice, their staff felt that really hurt them in a close loss against a quality opponent and that kind of thing. But certainly nothing gets you better for more challenging games than playing top level competition, and we've always had to talk about that being a Division II team in a Division I conference where, hey, we want to take our shots at the best. If you want to be the best team in the state, you got to be willing to play some of the best teams. And so I think there's some natural consequences of putting yourself in those kind of positions to be tested throughout the year. And thankfully, the system is rewarding that now.
And Coach, I was wrong. My stat stuffer Dan Ross to the right of me showed me actually Ashwaubenon was the 31st team into the Division III football playoff field. So you played 2 playoff games or teams in your non-conference, and that's part of that math, how you get to the number 1 seed. The other thing we learned,
right.
Yep. Yeah, the other thing we learned earlier in our show today from Commissioner Shafranski is the map drawing, and we found out that the intentional drawing of that map in Division II was done to make sure that Waunakee was a 1, Kettle Moraine was a 1, and you were a 1. They intentionally maneuvered the boundaries of that map to make sure that those things happened. How does that wash over you?
Yeah, that sounds great because I think when we as a coaching, association gave up control over coach-led seed meetings, there was kind of the wondering of is the computer doesn't care about, a lot of things that coaches might care about and that kind of thing. So what I appreciate, I think you mentioned it, referred to it as the hand of God type thing.
That's right, I did.
Right, yes. Yeah, so I think that's perfect, and that's where it should be, where the computer does its thing, but then somebody really takes us a minute to look it over and say, hey, does this make sense? And it's, again, I don't think we're ever going to have a system, no matter who runs it, that's going to be perfect and enjoyed by everybody and agreed upon by everybody. But I do appreciate that going into trying to say, hey, let's separate some of who we feel are the top teams in the state, and and obviously, just like every year, you can do that, but it's playoff football and surprises happen, so I'm looking forward to seeing how the postseason plays out here.
Yeah, you're right, Coach. There are so many variables on the absolutes, and then you mix in everybody's opinion, and so, you're never going to get it right. That's impossible. All right, we take a look at the number 1 Kaukauna Galloping Ghost, number 1 seed. Again, we're talking to head coach Matt Binsfeld. You got Brookfield Central to start off at home. And then we talked about West Appear, and I'm not asking you to look ahead. I'm just mentioning for the folks at home, there is your Week 2 opponent, West Appear, on the 4 line, and perhaps a rematch on the 27th. But first things first, you got to deal with Brookfield Central. Tell us about the timeline over the next few days of beginning to prepare for your first-round opponent.
Yeah, well, Coach sent over their film almost right away, so we're just starting to break all that down and get familiar with them. But obviously, in my first couple minutes of looking them over, you can see they have some kids on their team. Now, looking at their schedule, they haven't had a great run the last couple of weeks, which I think is how you get to an 8 seed kind of thing. But they certainly have potential. They certainly have some athletes on their team, and they play in a great conference that plays a high level of football. So I assume that they're going to come up here and give us their very best next Friday, and we're going to have to be ready.
I think of playoffs, and right away I think of defense, and then I go to look at what happened during a team's year that tells me that their defense can be playoff caliber for the next 5 weeks, and I have to look no further than the game I was standing on the sidelines at in Week 8 against Kimberly, and in the second half, your defense was lights out against an always tough Papermakers squad. Tell us about your defense as you enter the playoffs.
Yeah, so our defense has just an unwavering belief in our defensive coordinator and in themselves and in their teammates. Coach Martin has done such a fantastic job, and he's been with me for, this is his 8th season here, my 8th season. He's been with me from the start. I coached him at Wrightstown way back when I was an assistant. He was on the state championship team in 2006 there. And he's got those kids really believing that, we can bend and not break, or we can give up a score and come back and get a stop. And we continuously talk about, putting a mistake behind us and refocusing. And we've got a bunch of kids that really believe in each other and that, believe in what we're teaching them to do and their role in the game plan. And so they don't stop on it, and I think, looking at it, there was a few moments in that game against Kimberly in the first half where you're like, okay, they're going to push us around here, and they're going to have their way with us kind of thing. But we made some adjustments, and, we're there to capitalize on some breaks when we got them. And our kids just don't quit, and they believe in what we're doing. So as long as that belief is there, you've always got a chance to pull something out, So second half went the way we wanted, and we were able to come away with a win there.
Coach, one scene I won't forget soon is on the game-clinching interception against Kimberly. The roar from your crowd was similar to a University of Wisconsin football game at Camp Randall. It was impressive.
Yeah, well, our community's been waiting for that one for a while, right? And everybody, if you're from Kaukauna, you love the opportunity to beat Kimberly, right? And they don't come around very often because they're so good at what they do in just about everything. So it was a big deal for our community, and football is a pride point for our community too, and that's something we've been waiting on for a while. So I'm not surprised that you heard that, and I think everybody's pretty excited and still is.
Coach, we're looking forward to the playoffs. Some breaking news here from Kaukauna that Coach may already know about. Zaleski Sports is going to carry every Galloping Ghost playoff game live, and we're looking forward to it, Coach. Best of luck on Friday night.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
There we go. Kaukauna Galloping Ghosts, Matt Binsfeld, and a really good football team.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun this year on the Red Zone channel and doing some games.
Travis Wilson.
One of my favorite things of being a part of was that Week 8 game.
Oh, it was great.
It was absolutely incredible. From Shiloh the horse to the Kimberly fans. Obviously, I don't think you consider it an upset, but it's been so long since Kaukauna beat Kimberly. It's been so long since Kimberly didn't win the conference outright. Like there were a lot of historical things that kind of happened that night, and we were part of it. We had the celebration. The kids stormed the field. It was crazy.
They were giving us high fives on the sideline.
They were.
Yeah, it was such a fun atmosphere. We had before the game we went over, had fun with some of the student section over at Kimberly, and make sure to get everybody involved because that's what we do, right? We're here to make sure that everybody gets to get recognized. And how about that, Coach? A fan of the show? How about that?
Yeah, it's not just us talking to it's not just us talking to the camera and nobody. The really interesting thing about Division II this year, and we've talked about it this week several times, is that Division II is absolutely stacked. right? Kaukauna is a great team, probably the best team that I've seen with my eyes this year. Now, I haven't seen all the teams, obviously.
Yeah.
But Waunakee fantastic. Kettle Moraine's the best team in the state. I think if we took a poll of people that knew football, they say Kettle Moraine's the best team in the state.
I enter that poll.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I say yes.
Me too. So I know that leading into the bracketing last night, this morning, that, man, those two teams are pretty close together geographically. How can you go about trying to separate them a little bit? And I'm really glad that the WIAA did that.
Yeah, it was fun hearing from Tom Shafranski on that map drawing process. And as we're talking about that, a part-time cartographer himself, no doubt about it, Mr. Travis Wilson joins the show. Travis, you've had a chance. You were part of the reveal this morning, and again, you did a great job. And now you've had another 3-4 hours to kind of reflect on the playoff field as a whole. Give us kind of some of your instant reaction on the 224 in 11 player.
Well, it was another year, as we knew would happen, where there were a number of teams that finished under 500 in conference, teams that finished 3 and 4 that made the playoffs. More this year than we've had before, as there continue to be teams that siphon away to 8 player. That's only going to increase and not decrease. So, that's always part of it, is figuring out who those teams that finish on the bubble are and what the tiebreakers are going to be, who gets in on some of those. That's always part of it. And then, the divisional cut lines, where teams end up, who goes up, who goes down, is always a big story. Didn't seem to be, a lot of consternation on some of those cut lines. One of the big stories was on the D1, D2 cut line. Sun Prairie East ended up getting the last spot, the biggest team in D2, which certainly strengthens that division a little bit further. Columbus, the defending Division 4 state champions, they dropped to Division 5. We expected that to happen. Their enrollment decreased quite a bit. Aquinas, the defending Division 5 champs 2 years in a row, they remain in D5. They were pretty close to dropping to D6. But otherwise, for the most part, not really any surprises on some of those cut lines. And then it's really, about how the maps are drawn, as you guys were talking about. There's a lot of different viewpoints on that. That's one of those things that it does bring in some subjectivity. You can get situations where teams end up in different brackets, and one team has a better resume than the other, but because they're in different brackets, the seeds look different, and people get a little, up in arms about that sometimes. But ultimately, I think it went pretty smoothly as far as how the regions were drawn and how things came out. But there's certainly a lot to talk about in terms of where teams ended up seeding and what matchups are and what sort of big games are going to be.
As I talked to Tom Shafranski earlier today, we focused a little bit of that talk on Division 2 because of all the divisions across the state. That's going to have the most eyeballs on it. It seems to be the most competitive, perhaps top to bottom, and some of those marquee teams like Kettle Moraine and Waunakee are part of that group this year. And what we talked about and what Tom alluded to was making sure those lines were in a spot that, there were going to be some teams driving past each other to get to their games, but those lines were drawn to help showcase Wisconsin football, and in this case, to help make sure that Waunakee, Kaukauna, and Kettle Moraine were maybe situated to not have to go at each other very early.
Yeah, and that's part of the criteria when they look at, how do you draw those circles? The first thing that they look at is identifying conference champions and identifying conference champions that finish unbeaten in conference play. They try to, the best they can, distribute them equally throughout the brackets. And sometimes it's easier said than done. If you have a number of conference champions that are in the same area, it becomes hard to split them up sometimes. Now, in Division 2, it was maybe a little bit easier in that Waunakee, Kaukauna, Kettle Moraine are in different parts of the state, but you still have a team like Badger that's undefeated that ended up in the same grouping as Kettle Moraine and gets a 2 seed. So it can be tough. That's I think a lot of the consternation recently has been about seeding, but I think sometimes that is more of a result of how the maps are drawn, and that's where I think oftentimes people have some of the bigger issues is, well, I got placed with this group and it was really strong, and I got a 4 seed, whereas if I was in another bracket, I might have got a 2 seed or something like that. So that's where sometimes the problems come into play, and it's also again the part that brings the most subjectivity. And speaking of Division II specifically, I looked at that what would be Group C, where Milwaukee King is the top seed, and then Sun Prairie East is the 2 seed, and that sets up pretty well for Sun Prairie East to make a nice run in the playoffs.
Hey, Travis, this is Dan Ross in the studio with Jason. First of all, you guys have a fantastic site. We couldn't do half the things that we do here at Zaleski Sports without your help. Not accidentally, but we have a fantastic operation over there. My question for you is, given the number of teams that are continuing to move to 8-player, which you brought up at the top, what are your thoughts about what the future of this looks like? There are more and more 3 and 4 teams getting into the playoffs. We're probably not that far away from a 2 and 5 team making it in. Have you heard any talk, or what are your opinions about maybe cutting down a division or just expanding the playoffs to everybody?
Well, that's certainly gained momentum in recent years. Now we're not that close yet to a 2 and 5 team getting in. I think it was 8 or 10 teams that finished 3 and 4 this year that did not make the playoffs. So yeah, we're not quite there yet. But if that ever happened, I think that would certainly kickstart those conversations even further. There were discussions this year, and over the past year, there were some people that started talking about all play or some kind of all play model. I'm not a fan of that. I don't think that's something that the coaches want necessarily. There are some that prefer that, but as a whole, I don't think it's something that the coaches really prefer. The idea of cutting a division, I think that's the one that I think has the most merit. I hear people sometimes say, well, cut a round out of the playoffs. And that would not be something anybody would do, number one, for a lot of different reasons. But if you cut a round out of the playoffs and you go to 112 qualifiers, you're talking about teams that finish 5 and 2 in conference not getting in. Yeah. Let alone all the teams that finish 4 and 3, et cetera. So that's not really feasible. So I think the best option is considering reducing down to 6 divisions of 11-player football. There doesn't seem to be a lot of momentum for that. Nobody's really asking for that within the football community, the football coaches, the Football Coaches Association, the WIAA. So I don't know that that's real close on the horizon. But again, as more and more teams move to 8-player, there is a request by the 8-player teams to expand their playoffs. Yep. And if they do expand their playoffs, then that could cause more teams to move to 8-player as they see an opportunity for success, which would further siphon off of 11-player. And now, currently we have essentially 8 divisions, right, with 7 divisions of 11-player and 1 division of 8-player. They go to 2 divisions of 8-player at some point. Now you could reduce 1 division of 11-player, still have 8 total playoff divisions across all of football. And I think that would make a lot of sense. But again, while I think that's the most feasible, there just hasn't been a lot of momentum about that yet.
Yeah, I know that up in this area, there are some 11-man teams that are barely hanging on, and it's week to week, even if they're able to play. So it's nice to have options, obviously. 11-man always going to be near and dear to football fans' hearts, right? But the 8-man is really, really gaining traction up here.
And it has for a long time, obviously. It's more than a decade since a group of 16 teams first kind of launched that experiment of going back to 8-player, which used to be very popular in the 1950s and 60s. I think there was upwards of 70 teams that competed in reduced player football of some kind back during that time. Then school consolidation came about, and schools got bigger, and it was less of an issue. But enrollments are declining around the state. It is getting tougher and tougher for some schools to field legitimate football teams. And the other thing that really has driven it recently is the addition of the playoffs, the addition of a true state champion in 8-player. There's some teams that probably could field an 11-player team, but they see a path to success that's a little bit easier in 8-player. And that's a more attractive option right now for some teams, even if they can have enough for a full team.
Travis, Jason back here. I want to turn our attention now to the popularity of the sport of football in the state of Wisconsin. I think it is still very high, perhaps on an upward trend again. And I'm thinking back to 2020 and now, and everything's coming. Every arrow is pointing up. And I think of small town football, and I know small town football too. And when those games happen, especially come playoff time, and if it's a road game or maybe even a home game, but the whole town attends these games, and it is community pride, and everybody in town knows the names of the kids, and they're all cheering in unison. And I look at a conference like the Merriwood, who is in its final year of existence, and of course there's a lot of tears about that, because these people have known about the Merriwood since they were born, and maybe their dad and their grandpa played in the Merriwood. But we look at the Merriwood this year, and 5 of the 6 teams making the playoffs, and really showing that small town football is still big time in Wisconsin.
Absolutely. There's still many places, including the Merriwood, where it is a big deal, where it is alive and well. As much as we talk about, declining participation and declining enrollment and challenges for football, it still means a lot in a lot of communities. It's still, something that can be the heartbeat of your community, especially early in the school year. Talk to administrators around the state, and they will tell you, if your football team gets off to a good start to the season, it sets the tone for your school year and how it's going to begin. Yeah. It can be, real important from a school perspective, and that's what we love to see. We love seeing that passionate, fan base for high school sports. During COVID, when we had to shut down and we had, state basketball tournaments canceled, and entire state spring seasons canceled, and impacts into the fall and winter. I think that really kind of, highlighted the idea that it really does matter, that it matters to the kids. And we've seen great interest and great passion and for us, great traffic around high school sports over the last couple of years as people, I think there was some pent up demand when high school sports went away. So we're seeing great traffic on our site. I'm sure you guys are as well with what you're doing. And that just tells you that the demand and the interest in high school sports is as high as it ever has been.
You mentioned those first couple weeks of a football season in a small town. The better that team does, it affects the economy. More people are at the watering hole. True. They're buying better groceries. They're having more fun. It's weird, but it's true. Lastly, Travis, tell us what to expect in the coming days as you prepare for the football playoff season at wisports.net.
Well, it will be a busy 5 weeks from here on out. This week we will begin our preparations for the playoffs. We will preview every division, looking at who got in and what some of the matchups are, the top players in each division, and breaking down and providing analysis of every division. We will have coming out this week as well. We will have our staff and media partner picks that hopefully you'll participate in once again, where we'll throw out who we think will get to Madison and hoist some gold balls, and people can always dissect that later on. We'll have opportunities for people to be involved in picking their own playoff brackets, and there's a pick'em contest that some of our message board folks do. So we'll have all kinds of information. You'll really want to check it out on wisports.net as your daily destination for all high school sports.
Yeah, I'm happy to be part of it, and I appreciate the invite. And yes, I do get harassed in the press box of that team that I picked to lose, and they happen to win that next game, and that's always fun too. Lastly, Travis, how many quick trips you been to today?
Today, none. Shockingly, surprisingly.
In a deficit.
Yeah, on my way back from Madison from the reveal show, I just wanted to get home. Was up late last night working on some playoff stuff. Up early for the reveal show, so just wanted to get home.
All right, excellent. Well, great job again today. Thanks for calling in. We appreciate your time.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
All right, there he is, wisports.net's Travis Wilson.
Yeah,
friend of the show.
Yeah, I love him. I know Travis from coaching junior college basketball years ago. He was at UW Richland. He was a Roadrunner. Coach of the Roadrunners.
Yeah. Well, he's still a Roadrunner, except he's now running around the state of Wisconsin visiting Quick Trips.
It's true. Richland Center, near and dear to his heart. I think his kids are at Reedsburg now.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
I think he was a middle school football coach there, or is.
Yeah, could very well be.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, with Sports.net, we are spoiled here in Wisconsin to have a site like that because nobody else does.
No, as you and I have talked about before, we did some business in the state of Indiana a couple of years ago, and I'm looking far and wide, attempting to find anything, and there was really nothing. It was really tough. All right, we got 4 coaches left, and Katie's just dialed one up here, and I'm excited to see who it is because we still have Jay Anderson, Jason Tubbs, Len Lutke, and Chris Lindner, all coaches of playoff teams. We're going to finish this show with a bang, and Katie is going to hold it up, and we are going to be told we are joined now by Auburndale Eagles head coach Jay Anderson. And Coach, you said it in the interview last night with our own Joe Anderson. You hoped that you had done enough to get a good seed, and you did great. You are the 1 seed. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's exciting. To be honest with you, is surprised when I was notified. Actually, I didn't get to see the show or wasn't at the TV at first. And notified, a little bit surprised, but I guess you probably know the formula better than I do. But I've been surprised in the past the other way, and this one I think from what I've learned from the past few years, schedule, we had a lot of teams that made the playoffs. We had some wins against, and Milwaukee Hamilton won the Division One. One of the schools being a Division One and making the playoffs, and Falls a good seed, and beating those teams that are in higher divisions, I think really played in our favor.
We did mention it last night.
I was just going to say, Coach, so we were watching your interview. We do a little studio show on Friday nights covering all the games statewide, and we were watching your interview with Jay, and we started plugging in some numbers, and I turned to my co-host, Dan Ross, and I said, Dan, I think Auburndale's the 1 seed over Stratford, just looking through the numbers, and it turned out that was exactly what happened. And an interesting thing, but your win against Colby obviously was, the math anyway, probably tipped you just right over. Tell us about playing in monsoon conditions last night and beating a conference rival, Colby.
Well, it was just one of those games where you don't know kind of the turnover thing. You really prepare. We had Coach Cooper Weinferter was with the water bottle and making sure our team was practicing the previous day with a very wet football. So he spraying the football in every snap, and really I think that helped for us to just have no turnovers in comparison to their 3. So that was a very big part of the game. Really happy the way our guys responded in those conditions. And we kept reminding them we had a lot to play for. And maybe there wasn't a conference championship. Every win matters. Seeding purposes, home games, senior night. We had a lot to play for. And as you said, a rival like Colby that goes back many, many years. And so very happy with the way we performed. And it was a great win. And I think, like you said, maybe it kept us the number 1 seed, I believe, in Division 5. So, and it probably did. And a lot of that comes down to those types of wins, from what I understand of the formula, to be able to get those higher seeds. So that probably did do a lot for us.
Yeah, again, talking to Auburndale Eagles head coach Jay Anderson, Division 6 playoff seed number 1 in the lower left part of our brackets anyway. And we did. We thought, we saw that math kind of start shaking out, and I thought, wow, I think they are a 1 seed. You mentioned Cooper Weinferter, just to fill in the audience there. Alumni, former Auburndale Eagle. Matter of fact, I believe when Cooper was there, Auburndale Apache, a former quarterback of yours and a valuable resource on the sideline, no doubt about it. We've talked to almost every coach in your conference, and one of the toughest conferences in all the state. And so what do you get as a reward for your number 1 seed? Well, you get to play Conference Foe Marathon. What did you learn in your regular season game against Marathon that you think is going to be the solution on Friday night?
Well, I don't know. That's going to break down film a lot more and be able to figure that out. Just biggest thing that we have to be better at this time around is tackling. And, that's what they have. They have a lot of athletes. I mean, they can really spread the field on you. They have some length.
They have a nice team. I always prefer maybe somebody outside conference. You're starting with that. I'd rather be able to see somebody else, but that it is what it is. We're both going to know each other, and it's also that motivation factor for them. And we've been a lower seed, and you can really use that. And right now, we're the number one, and trying to make sure our guys understand that those numbers don't mean anything other than you get to host that next game, whether this first round here. And we still have to come out and perform, and they're going to be very fired up. They're excited about being in the playoffs, I'm sure, and then they're going to try to prove that they're better than an 8. And I think that's one of the things that I guess I've always used in the past to be able to use that. I'm sure Stratford right now is getting their players all geared up that they should be a number one, and they're going to use that for motivation. And we don't have that this year. I've used that in the past, and right now we just have to understand that we host one game, and we have to be able to focus on the one game. And other than that, there isn't anything any different.
Talking to Auburndale Eagles head football coach Jay Anderson. Let's talk about motivation a little bit. I remember a couple of years ago, you and I were talking, and it was the day before seeds were coming out, and you had said, we just want to have a home playoff game. We think we've earned the right to play a home playoff game. You did, and you won that game. Now you're able to maybe offset some of that other motivation because you have home field advantage throughout. How can you use that to your advantage?
I think just like you said, just being able to stay home, stay in your, have your fan base here cheering on, where every team's most comfortable being at home, and just letting them know that we just have to keep earning that right. Of course, doesn't make it a given, and that's what I'm gonna be able to stress to our guys. We get to host one game. We have to earn the rest from there on, and that should be motivation enough. I sure hope. We still have, we have some young kids. We have some experienced kids. Playoff time, new season. So just going to try to focus on that and remind them kind of some of the things that I used to talk about to motivate when we had to travel. We're going to have our opponents doing that. So it's just an exciting time right now, and trying to make sure they focus on the one game. And everything else, they just have to earn, have to play at a high level.
There you go. Auburndale Eagles head coach Jay Anderson. Coach, best of luck against Marathon on Friday night.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. There you go. The Eagles, Dan, are the 1 seed, and we think they did. They tipped over that line with that win last night.
It was really close.
Just tipped over it.
Yeah, math was really close. And I think we're going to be talking Stratford at some point here, but
Jason Tubbs is next on the list.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to get kind of both sides of that. That's a tough group. You have Auburndale,
really
you have Stratford, you have Mondovi, you have Coleman.
Yeah, Mondovi, state runner-up last year. Stratford, state champ last year. Coleman's been a thorn in many a side for the last couple of years. There's nothing easy in that bracket.
No, absolutely not. Good thing for Auburndale is that they get to host as long as they want to, as long as they win.
Al Davis, just win, baby.
Yeah, just win.
That's all they got to do.
And honestly, I mean, kind of taking a macro look at the division as a whole, there's a good chance that the state champ or the state runner-up comes out of this group of 8.
All right, and as we talked about, we just got done with Auburndale's Jay Anderson. We turn now to the 2 seed in this bracket, and it is Stratford head football coach Jason Tubbs. Coach, congratulations on a great regular season.
Yeah, thank you. A chance to get to be conference champs and get 8 wins in a season before the playoff starts is a good start to your season.
You are the 2 seed in your group. I remember the last time you were a 2 seed and you made it down to Camp Randall. Not a 2 seed last year, but state champion last year. What kind of pressure do you and the guys feel on having that kind of target in your back as being the defending state champs as you open the playoffs?
We've kind of had that all year. You could definitely tell other teams are jacked up to play a state champion team. But like I tell our players, that was last year's team. This is this year's team. We're a lot different than last year. We lost a lot of great players from last year's team with Braden Schiller, Ashton Wrench, Johnny Seitz, and Jackson Orman, to name a few. And those guys are coming watching us play now on the sidelines in the stands, and these guys have to make their own memories.
We heard a lot about, we talked to WIAA football commissioner Tom Shafranski at the start of the show, and we heard a lot about unbeaten conference champions, and that was you, and Tom talked about having those unbeaten conference champions as, if possible, as a 1 seed. Yeah, that didn't happen to you. Is there any kind of talk that you and the guys are going to go through about, maybe we got kind of undervalued here, and that's some extra motivation as we start on Friday?
Well, not only us, but Edgar, the team that won the Merrillwood Conference and beat us, they also got a 2 seed in Division 7. But yet 2 teams that took second and third place in the Merrillwood get 1 season and one in Division 6 and one in Division 5. But so it's just interesting to see how everything shakes out. I thought us beating Mosinee, another conference champ, would give us some points there in the computer system. But end of the day, it's home or away. Last year we kind of proved that we can play on the road and do really well in the postseason.
Take a look at your bracket here. Again, number 2 Stratford will host number 7 WIAA Fremont. Coach, that's a game 8 days ago that you won 56-0. Can anything change? Can 56 points change in 13 days' time?
Well, they had one of the better players in our conference that didn't play against us, and we expect him to be back. He's a real fast kid for them. They did lose their starting quarterback early in the year, and they have a freshman playing. And we also had one of our two-way starters, Carter Luke, was out that game as well. So we got a couple kids probably coming back. We'll get them at home, which is always nice. And looking this year's bracket, if we can find a way to, looks like Mondovi could be a possible rematch from last year's state championship game in level 2, and then possibly a short drive to Auburndale. So last year we had to go up to Grantsburg for level 3. So I think we're pretty happy with overall. We saw some of the more higher ranked teams in the state all go south. So I feel I always tell our guy, I always think we have a shot regardless. And I think that's how we practice and that's how we play.
I think about the travel again. I think to that 2019 team in a level 3, you went as far as Lake Superior to play a game in a level 3. Last year, you played every game on the road. How comfortable can you make it playing at home?
Yeah, it's been a weird year with our field, being kind of new again to us, and our kids but they're excited to be able to wear black. It was kind of the theme this year, back in black. And I looked to our seniors for leadership. Kohler Kilty and Gavin Leonard are returners from last year's season and run. And they've been, leading amongst themselves and getting guys to understand that this is a new season. Everybody is undefeated and 0-0, and it's one game at a time.
You mentioned both those guys you just mentioned had touchdowns in last year's state championship game. This year they're back again. Kohler, not only does he kind of carry the torch for your team, but he carries the ball with some authority. What kind of a weapon or weapons really are those guys offensively?
Well, that's kind of our system of offense. If teams are want to load the box, then we're going to throw the ball to Gavin and Peyton Glenn and Jet Shaner and then if teams are going to, deepen up a little bit, then we're going to hand the ball off to Kohler or let Jack run or let Gavin run. And, it's kind of our balance of our offense. And, we kind of take what the defense wants to give us. And, we have good enough playmakers and feel our offensive line is playing at a high level that we can, try to stay balanced throughout the playoff run.
Talking to Stratford Tigers head football coach Jason Tubbs. You mentioned Edgar earlier. We did talk to Coach Sins earlier in this show. The last time somebody scored a point against those Wildcats was your team back in week 2. Yet since week 2, you've been able to put that game behind you. How have your guys been able to accomplish what they have weeks 3 through 9 in an impressive fashion too?
Yeah, beating Amherst in week 3 coming after that game, I figure our whole team took a big step forward on what football was like during the week of practice. And the kids kind of went back to basics and the small details of what quality football looks like. And, after that win, you could tell our team was confident that we could beat anyone else. We, beat a good Wittenberg-Burnwood team that has a lot of really good playmakers on the field. And I expect them to make a nice run in Division 5. And, I think at that point we kind of realized, okay, we got a shot to win conference, and then see what happens when the playoffs comes around.
Stratford Tigers head football coach Jason Tubbs. Again, the Tigers host the WIAA Fremont, the 7-seeded team for WIAA Fremont on Friday. Coach, best of luck on Friday and throughout the playoffs.
Thanks, Jason, and everyone else for your guys' coverage all year. My parents get to watch from their home and relatives in Florida, so it's great to see that we get to watch you when weather's bad like last night. You can sit and watch a game and enjoy some popcorn.
Excellent. Coach, thank you so much for your support. We appreciate it.
Yep, take care.
All right, there you go. The Stratford Tigers, Dan, they are the defending Division VI state champions.
Yeah, you know what? It is hard to it's hard to ignore the fact that the team is so battle tested, and the name Stratford is synonymous with Madison, right? Stratford's either winning titles or they're in level 4s, or they're winning silver balls, gold balls, whatever the case is, and that's something that the other teams in this group might not necessarily have. Like Auburndale had a fantastic season.
Right.
They have never had a deep playoff run. At least not lately.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about level 4, right?
Yeah.
That's been elusive for some of the other teams in that bracket.
Yeah. So I mean, the fact that Stratford is the defending champion, they have guys that, like Coach said, they won 3 road playoff games and 2 neutral site games in the playoffs last year, right?
Yeah, didn't have a home field.
No. And the expectations are just different, right? The expectations at Stratford are different than the expectations at Auburndale. And those gentlemen over in Stratford have lived up to it year after year after year. And that's something to take into account when you try to think about like who do you project to win? Like who might come out of that group of 8? I'll take the team that's battle tested more than anything else.
Yeah, I think you're right there. If I'm going to be asked by Travis Wilson on a statewide board to pick some winners coming up, and so it's going to be known anyway. And I will have Stratford.
Yeah.
In Camp Randall.
Auburndale's really good this year.
Spectacular team. I wish them all the best.
Yeah.
But just
experience.
Just only one at the end. That's the only thing about it, right? That's how sports work. Is by the end of it, we're left with one, and there's one gold ball. I talked to when I talked to the commissioner earlier. We had I mentioned to him there's 260 teams, and there are 8 gold balls, and that's it.
That's true.
That's the end of it. All right, we're going to move now to Division 7. And we're going to talk to Loyal Greyhound head coach Chris Lindner. Coach, congratulations on making the playoffs in 2023.
Well, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. And it's been a long haul this season to get to where we're at, but we're thankful we're in. So,
tell us a little bit, or just remind us. I know you and I were on a show together back in early August when we were previewing these teams, and you talked to us about your team and maybe the numbers. You're a little concerned about the small numbered size of the team and some of the other challenges that were ahead. How did you and the guys pull this off this year?
Well, I think we had a number of different things. Not only just numbers, but just with injuries and things like that at the beginning and in the middle of the season, and then to match our schedule, I thought we had a pretty tough first 5 or 6 games, and I don't know, there were some really rough times where we didn't know where we were going to go. At one point, we were 0-5, and things looked really grim. But we as coaching staff got the kids to just keep working and believing and hanging with each other, and actually have done a nice job here the last 3 or 4 weeks to get where we needed to be. And so I give a lot of credit to our staff and to our kids to just keep hanging in there and keep working, and things started to work in our favor. So, and we got some kids back halfway through and started to click. So we're playing, I think, all right, and I'm excited for the chance to play another week.
Talking to Loyal Greyhounds head football coach Chris Lindner, the last 3 weeks have been spectacular. You beat Assumption 42-6. You shut out Rochefort 44-0. You beat Pacelli 64-13. Some pretty gaudy numbers in the last 3 weeks. I look at the September 22nd contest against Iola, who's a really good team, a narrow defeat for your guys. And if I know a coach like I think I know any of them, you probably learned a lot in that game against Iola. How do you see these last 3 or 4 weeks, especially that really close game against Iola?
Well, I think that was a key turning point for us. That was the first game I think we had everyone back. We didn't have someone injured or out or whatever, and I think that game told us a little bit. We had a few, I would say 2 or 3 times where we got down inside their Iola's 30 and we came away with nothing. And at the end of the game, we were down 18-8. And we really saw our kids really grit and scramble to get things done. And we had a shot at the last play of the game. We had a shot at winning it, and it just didn't happen. So I think that kind of, I don't know if you would say, got us to believe or got us to believe, but the no quit and playing, competitive football with one of the top person, our team in our conference was a boost of confidence. And I think our guys kind of have been working towards that and believing in that and having that confidence. And I think that really helped us out at that point of the season.
Oh, sorry, Coach. Sorry to interrupt.
Just at that point of the season. So.
Loyal Greyhounds start the playoffs on Friday. They are the 8 seed. You will travel to the number 1 seed, Reedsville. And as I look across this, especially Division 7, but maybe across some of these brackets, you've got one of the longer hikes in Wisconsin on Friday night, almost 3 hours on a bus.
That's a trip.
To get over there. How do you go about planning for a long road trip against what's going to be a really talented Reedsville squad?
Yeah, we look at it this way. We look at it's going to be a long trip. It's against a very good team, but it's someone different. We are not going against Edgar. We're not going against Regis. It's someone totally different that we haven't played. So we're going to work our tail off this next week and prepare and take that trip. We've gone to Hurley a couple different times over the last few years. So we'll break it up and we'll make it into a good trip and see what we can do against Reedsville on Friday.
Coach, we're looking forward to the start of the playoffs, and we're looking forward to your team, and we wish you all the best on Friday as you take on Reedsville. Loyal Football Greyhounds head coach Chris Lindner, best of luck.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. There you go. Yeah, they've got a tough task there, Dan, as any 8 seed does, but that's a tough one. You are glad to be in the playoffs, and then I think you'll go to school on Monday morning and you'll be like, oh, well, what do we do?
Yeah, I mean, Coach probably thought that he was going to get Edgar or Regis just because geographically, you figure you're in the playoffs, but you're probably a 6, 7, 8. You're somewhere in there, and you don't want Edgar, obviously. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be a tough game. One thing that Coach brought up was injuries, and I think that a lot of people that are kind of close to football or talk to coaches quite a bit, or have children, boys, I guess in this case, on the teams, that if you have a couple injuries on a Division 7 team, you're barely hanging on, right?
Yeah.
Because your team has 20
participating
people
in a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you lose a couple of guys, and especially if they're key players, it is really tough to keep that boat afloat. And you know what? Congratulations to Loyal. Like Coach said, they had the rough start, and they played a lot better down the stretch and qualified for the playoffs. That's a great year.
I mean, those last 3 games were they were taking teams to the woodshed.
Yeah.
So, and Reedsville's going to take note of that, I think. And, I've got the map, and x.com, Zaleski Sports, follow us there, and you can see the Division 7 map. That's a free roll. Now, the rest of the maps are Zaleski Sports VIPs only. But, yeah, we see Loyal here, and you can see why. coach thought he was going to be in a Regis or some other scenario, because those teams are an hour away, but there's the 3-hour drive to Reidsville.
Yeah, it almost seems like maybe Loyal and Edgar could have switched there.
It seems like, doesn't
Yeah,
it? And Edgar may think that same way as well. All right, we are nearing the end here. We've got Dan, I believe, our last football coach today, and we're talking to Marshfield Tigers coach Len Lutke, and his Tigers are in the playoffs. But first, Coach, congratulations on a great regular season in 2023.
Well, thank you very much. It was exciting to end on a senior night win. It's always good to finish the home season off with a win for the seniors. That was awesome.
Tell us about that, because during the season, you were up, you were down. Defense was fairly steady all year. The offense, it seemed like, was having trouble, kind of getting on track. Yet in a almost a playoff game in and of itself last night, you're able to come through. Tell us about last night's game specifically.
Well, we were excited, obviously, to play the thing, and we were. Coach Gato the night before, we're talking about if it's, pouring, we're scoring, and just, making the most of the situation instead of making excuses about the weather, and having making it a positive experience. And then the kids came out, and we got, getting that first touchdown and off to a great start was awesome. Because Hortonville's defense has been just stellar all year long and given up very few points. That was a great big start for us. And they put a good drive together, got a few third downs that they converted and scored, and then after that, the defense really responded well. We did a couple nice things, adjusting to what they wanted to do with the pass, and obviously had a great night intercepting the ball, and causing 7 turnovers was a big part of the win for us. So I was happy, and most of those turnovers were our seniors again, so that was awesome.
Marshfield Tigers go 4-3 in conference. Valley football is always tough. Hard-nosed, that goes back to our playing days, and things haven't changed in 30 years. When you look back on the conference season, just kind of put a grade out there on how those 4 wins especially, and how your team performed on the winning side of it.
Well, losing that tough one to Everest, we always battle with them, like I said, for years and years. It's been fun battling back and forth, and anybody's ball game right down to last-second field goal. So that was a tough one to lose. But it also spoke to, our resiliency and being able to come back from, 14 down and make a ball game of that thing. So that was a tough one. And then we get, Wausau West when, they're healthy. That, they're a good football team. It's unfortunate they got a few injuries like the rest of us do, but, that's part of the season as well. So that was a tough one for us. But then getting a couple wins at Appleton West and a tough bowl always with Rapids. We always got battles with them. It's always been a great game. And, to win that thing 6-0 was a heck of a battle, and they had a few drives going again against us, and we had some really good drives and just had a hard time scoring, and obviously so did they. So it was a huge win for us. And then Spash was, always another great competition at, home against the Blackout Cancer game and our homecoming and all that, fun. We had unfortunate right before the game with one of our players that took a little wind out of the sails, but they put up 21 in the first half, and we played pretty well in the second half. We just, like I said, we're just having a hard time finishing off, closing those drives out. But we moved the ball. And then obviously, again, last night with Hortonville, back and forth with them every year as well. And that was a big win for our program and, helped us get that 7th seed and go to New Richmond instead of probably Wanakee. So that was awesome.
Talking to Marshfield Tigers football coach Len Lutke. You mentioned Spash, Everest, West. Those are Division I teams in the playoffs that you tangled with again this year. How do playing those kind of teams now maybe give you an advantage come playoff time?
Well, there's no doubt. We've always said if you can win the Wisconsin Valley, that's always been a great, stepping stone for us. And obviously we didn't do that this year, but we battled with those. And and playing good teams helps you get better. I mean, just like our non-conference games. I mean, starting off the year with Hudson, who was, I believe, a number 1 seed in Division I, and New Richmond was their second game, and they're a Division, a 2 seed. So, we like playing good teams. It helps us prepare, for when we get to the playoffs. I mean, even though we're a 7 seed, we're excited about it, and we're confident that we can, play with people if we play that, to our potential.
You mentioned your opening round playoff game on Friday. You're at New Richmond. You were at New Richmond in week 2. It was a 31-10 defeat. What's it going to take to close that 21-point gap come Friday night?
Well, the biggest thing is, we were winning that game in the second half, 10-9, and, we just misfired on a few things. I believe we had a turnover and couldn't get off the field on a couple drives. So, it's a game that we were in, and it was a great competition. They're a good team. They got some good athletes, spread the ball around well. We just need to, cheer up some of those mistakes we made at the end of that ball game. It could have been a heck of a lot closer than it ended up. But when you turn the ball over and, don't get off the field, that's what happens.
On the way to New Richmond, there'll be some kind of self-reflection. You got about a 2.5-hour drive on the bus. How do you and the coaches help these guys kind of clear their heads and get mentally ready, take advantage of that time on the bus on Friday?
Well, a lot of times we'll talk about, the history of Marshfield, and sometimes even we'll put on some old DVDs of the good old days, and, or even some recent wins, of Marshfield's past and how we've gone to other places and won big ball games when, we weren't the top seed. And I think that's important. The biggest thing we talk about is, believing in, yourself, believing in our team, and, setting yourself up to be successful, and, believing this is a game and that we can win and we can go be, very competitive in. We just have to take care of our business and control our controllables.
And then lastly, and we thank you for being here. You're filling in for head coach Dennis Gadel, who's off gallivanting in Minnesota today. What does Coach owe you for helping him out today and filling in for him?
Well, me and Coach Gadel have been doing this together a long time. He doesn't owe me anything. We're more like brothers than anything. We were privileged to coach under my dad for for years and learned a lot, and we complement each other, and it's been a fun working relationship, and I'm happy and honored to step in and represent our team on this sportscast. And it's awesome to see players like Joey and some of our other players that are playing in college to be able to go and watch them play. It's pretty neat, and to see them carry on that love for the game beyond. So.
You might be careful with that, saying he doesn't owe you anything, because if I know Denny like he does, he's going to take advantage and maybe slap you on the back of the head and he'll say, "Here's what I owe you."
Well, yeah. Anyway, we work things out.
Good.
There's no doubt about it.
I can believe it.
It's a give and take relationship. There's no doubt. So.
Well, excellent. Well, Len, we appreciate your time today. Best of luck. Again, the Marshfield Tigers travel to New Richmond. Kickoff Friday at 7 p.m. Best of luck, Coach.
Hey, thanks a lot. You have a good one.
You're welcome. Yeah, so the Tigers last year, Dan, for all their efforts, they went as the 8 seed to Wanakee, and this year as the 7 seed, they're going to face a tough New Richmond. The prediction I'll have there is the Tigers will win on Friday night.
That's a pretty good one.
Thank you. They're both the Tigers.
We sit here most Friday nights if we're not on site somewhere, and man, am I glad that Marshfield made it, because. Yeah. Because for those that are at home, you guys nobody sees what we have here.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, we have games up on the TV, and usually Marshfield's not on them. But you know what? That Marshfield game is on his laptop over here on the side, and he's always got eyes on his Tigers.
Yeah, and I always want the best for them. And I want that because my 2 varsity years, we did not have the best. And so, and yeah, of course, been in the Marshfield area for more than half of my life, and I get to know these guys, and you see them around town at the grocery store and all that kind of thing, and you just want the best. So, as I said, the prediction I have for that game on Friday in New Richmond is that the Tigers are going to win, and we will end the show today with New Richmond Tigers head football coach Reggie Larson. Coach, how about that for a prediction? The Tigers will win on Friday night.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the added pressure, but that's a lot of fun, and it's a team that we played week 2, but it's kind of hard to use that result as something that's going to be a factor in this game. Teams change so much over the course of the year. It's almost like we're 2 different teams, us and them included. So I appreciate the prediction, but we got a lot of work to do to set after for you.
Well, it's an easy one to make when both you are the Tigers. I'm never going to be wrong when I predict something like that. We had just finished up with defensive coach Len Lutke from those Marshfield Tigers just before you came on, and so I'm going to jump to a portion of the conversation I had with Lenny, and that was about that Week 2 game. And I know you've alluded to it just a moment ago, but you had a 21-point win. I asked Coach, how do you make up that 21-point gap? The question for you is, how do you maintain that 21-point gap on Friday night?
Yeah, and for those of you that have not seen the box score, I mean, that ended up being a 21-point game. That was not the story of that game. I looked late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter. We were actually losing 10-9 in that game, and then strung together a nice couple big offensive plays, got a couple key turnovers on defense, and then we really kind of broke it open in the fourth quarter. But it was a really evenly matched game through three of those quarters, and they'll be ready to go. And it's going to be a tough matchup. And we got to watch a little bit more film and kind of seeing what they're doing a little bit differently. But I'm anticipating a really, really hard-fought game, and hopefully we can come out on top of it.
New Richmond's Reggie Larson talking to us. Coach, I look at your conference. It's a tough one. Hudson, River Falls, Menominee. How do those kind of teams? What do you learn when you play the caliber of competition you have in the Big Rivers Conference?
Right. And I think you listed, some really good ones, but like when you look at like an Eau Claire North and an Eau Claire Memorial and even Superior, like they're all teams, regardless of their record, they all have really, really good players and really good coaches. And they're all big schools, like we're kind of right in the middle of it, but yeah, those Eau Claire schools, they're over 1,600. Chippewa Falls is about 1,400. Hudson's got 1,800 kids. Like they are big schools. And there's, like I said, really good athletes on the field because of that. And it really sets us up for success. And we feel if we can be competitive in that league, then we can compete in the Division II postseason. That's been kind of always our mindset. So we'll kind of see how that pans out for us here this year.
6-1 in conference. That was a good result, a second-place finish. Only Hudson above you. What did you learn about your guys this season that, when the season began, you thought, I think this is kind of what's going to develop, and then something else happened? What was that something else that happened this season with you and your guys?
Well, we lost a lot of offensive production. We had three three-year starters at really key positions, one at quarterback, one at running back, and one at receiver. So the big question mark was who's going to step in and fill roughly 80% of our offensive production. And to tell you the truth, it hasn't been one guy. It's been a very, very balanced attack. We got we played three running backs throughout the year. We played a two-quarterback system, and then we've had a multitude of different pass catchers step up in different varieties for us. So it wasn't just one guy to kind of step up and fill those roles. It was kind of filled by everyone on our team, and I give our kids a lot of credit working hard in the offseason to replace some of that production when they're kids that maybe didn't have as much varsity experience coming into the year. They've had really nice years, and our record kind of reflects that.
Coach, I look at some of the offensive production on a game-by-game basis this year, 44 points, 31 a couple times, 48, 39. You guys can score. Become playoff time, though, things get a little bit tighter offensively, and you got to look to the defense. Tell us about the kind of guys you have on the defensive side that in a tight playoff game you can turn to.
Yeah, we play a lot of man coverage. I don't think that's a secret. You turn on our film, we try to do that as best we can. We're not going to be the biggest team. We are a little bit undersized, but we're fast and we fly around. I think if those were two things that we hang our hat on, they would be that. We try to get a lot of hats to the ball. We try to be as physical as we can, try to cancel gaps, and try to make big plays and get the ball back to our offense because we know how explosive they are. And really, we know at any point we are never out of anything because of their quick score ability, and we just got to make sure that we are doing our part on defense to give them the best chance to keep going out and scoring points.
New Richmond Tigers football coach Reggie Larson. We'll end with this. You're the 2 seed on Friday. Marshfield's the 7. So math says you're the favorite in that game, and then that next game. And I know a coach, you're going to say, "Oh, I'm not going to look ahead," but we can. And if you got Menominee, River Falls, I mentioned those conference games, those conference teams. After that, just talk about the difficulty and the strength of your bottom half of the bracket.
Right, and it's the kind of the age-old saying is it's hard to beat a team twice. And if you look at it, if we're fortunate enough to get by Marshfield, then regardless of who wins that next matchup, that's going to be another team that would be the second time that we're facing them, and it's a team that we had beaten earlier in the season. So they have a little bit of the revenge game going forward, and they're all just great programs. I look at the coaches for all three of those schools. in that kind of bottom part of that region with us. And they're all really, really good guys and really, really good schematic-wise. And we have our hands full. And like I said, it's really, really difficult to beat teams 2 times in the season. And hopefully that's something we can do. But that's definitely going to be a big uphill challenge for us.
And then lastly, Coach, if you do win, you guarantee yourself the 2 home games. And again, that's the result of a successful regular season that's earned you that 2 seed. How will you describe that to your guys, that this is important, that we get to play at home and we need to keep this home field advantage?
Yeah, and it hasn't always been that way. Like I look back to 2 years ago when we were making our first time in Division II, and they shipped us down to DeForest as their, hey, here you go, welcome to Division II, and that was kind of a nice experience. That was a really big step up in competition from 3 to 2. And then, like I said, I just give our kids the most credit ever because they embraced the challenge and said, hey, we want to go out and be a competitive Division II football team. And they've worked really hard in the offseason the last 2 years to get us to this point. And because of that, like as we've said earlier, the result of the season has allowed us to do that. And it's given us an opportunity to hopefully, for sure, host 1 playoff game and then maybe another after that.
New Richmond Tigers head football coach Reggie Larson, best of luck on Friday night.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate you calling.
You're welcome. Well, Dan, there you go. There's a coach's show right there. I don't know how many we talked to, close to 100, I think, but wow.
A lot of coach speak.
Yeah, well, for sure.
Yeah.
These guys watch, the pros give interviews, and, they get interviewed too, and, a lot of coach speak.
Yeah.
What else did you learn?
Yeah, I'm really excited to get this thing started. There's this part of the season, right, and you have the non-conference season, and then you jump into conference, and some of these conferences have crossover games, and then you get into the meat of the schedule, and you have the favorites in the conferences. That's all behind you, right?
Yep.
And we heard it a couple times today where the coach just said, well, now it's 0-0. Everybody has the same record again, right? And sort of, right? But,
but these kids look at those seeds, though, and they know we're probably the underdog here.
Yeah, they're talking to each other on Snapchat and stuff. Like they know exactly what's going on, right? But, man, just looking through and paging through these brackets, Division II is so good this year.
It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, so good. And we talked to Marshfield, we talked to New Richmond.
Kaukauna.
Yeah, we talked to a lot of different teams, and after you get past the first round, and obviously, like we are in the media, we're sitting in these seats, we can say that, the 1s and 2s have a really good chance of advancing. Right?
I believe that on Friday.
Yeah.
Yep. And probably the next Friday as well.
Yeah, and that's just kind of how the high school football playoffs work. Level 1 games, there are very few close games. Historically, I guess. But, man, once you get into that level 2, we have New Richmond and maybe Menominee. That's a fantastic game if the seeds hold, right? Kaukauna, West De Pere, and Cedarburg and Homestead, these are monster programs. It's unbelievable how Division II is stacked up this year.
And I think that's the other thing as we begin to wrap up this the show today, and it's been 2 hours of greatness.
Yeah, it's been really good.
The other thing people should brace themselves for, and especially those of you who don't pay attention, and you just you look and maybe you're one that maybe doesn't dive into the stats, or maybe you're a habitual complainer, or somewhere in between. But what people should brace themselves for now, 4th year into the mathematical seed process, is that the favorites win, because that's how this thing has been organized to put the teams that are stronger in a position against weaker teams.
Yeah, I mean, when we were playing, you just played the school closest to you, basically, in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the records were.
They could have been the best 2 teams in the state, right there next to each other, and often were.
Yeah, I one of the things that really started pushing the state to change this was boys basketball in the late 90s, because what the WIAA did was they released the brackets that summer. It doesn't matter what your records are.
Yep.
This is where the teams are not even seated. This is just who you play. These are where the host sites are. And you had terrible gyms hosting sectional games and stuff. It was ridiculous. But what eventually happened was there was a sectional where the top 4 teams in the entire state played each other in the first 2 rounds. They didn't even make it to sectionals, right?
Right.
And that's
Right.
what it took. So it's easy to complain about what we have with seeding and picking the maps and stuff, but man, it is light years ahead of what it used to be, and they're going to continue to go forward. And kudos to the WIAA. I mean, I can look at this and feel upset about a couple things on here. Like I'm a little bit upset about Edgar. I mean, I think Edgar's an extremely good team, and we're actually obviously tight with them, but they got a lot of things right.
I think so too. And if last year was any indication, they got nearly all of it right. And when we say they, we're talking about a mathematical formula.
Yeah.
Right? That's the they, and the they that put together the mathematical formula are the coaches. The coaches offered it and then approved it, and it's good. It's good. And if you're not paying attention, you're the one who doesn't know that it's good. So pay better attention. And as we found out today, we've got coaches all over the state that are listening to every word that we say and are learning from it, right? Coach Binsfeld of Kaukauna said so. He's like, I'm learning by watching you guys. And so take our knowledge. You get it for free when all you do is watch. You get all this for free.
So I want to lead us out of this, right?
Yep. We're going to wrap it up here.
You are going to be making picks.
I am.
All right.
I am probably on Tuesday.
So out of our local teams that are probably listening or watching us,
put me on the spot right away.
Yeah. Who has the best chance, you think, of bringing home some hardware?
Stratford.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've got a little bit easier route than maybe some of the other local teams. And I think that Edgar, when they play at Boyceville in 3 weeks, are going. One, they've got the opportunity to settle it on the field, and I know that team maybe a little better than some others. Trevor here knows that team very well because he's at practice every Wednesday with them and doing other things. He is, and if Edgar puts on a show that I think they will against Boyceville, I think the gold ball is coming home to Edgar this year as well.
Could you imagine if Edgar and Stratford both won it?
I think it's very possible.
I mean, with their storied history, right? Mm-hmm. And they used to be in the same division. They would play each other.
Oftentimes in the playoffs, years ago, but yeah, often. So I think it's very possible that 2 gold balls about 15 miles apart will show up in a crowded gymnasium in November 18th.
Wow, very exact.
Not that I'm planning ahead. There, how about that for an answer? You want to put me on the spot? I'll give you an answer. The rest of it's a mess. I need to research.
I don't even disagree with you.
I need to research all of the rest of it, though. Division 5, 4, 3, 2. Amherst Falcons are going to have some level 2 issues. We've watched Amherst play this year. Offense good, defense shaky, and in the playoffs, shaky defense is early exit.
Yeah, but they're fun games to watch,
aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, we're looking forward to the whole thing. The Dukes of Hazzard is here in a Jeep grocery wagon. Not even a cool looking car, but
it is orange.
Well, that's about it, man. We see so much here on Main Street in Stevens Point, and one thing we see all of our fans walking by all the time. They're waving to us.
They really are. And last night they got to hear us.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of insight onto this week's schedule?
As far as the live broadcast schedule, well, I know that on Tuesday, volleyball playoffs start, and we will have Columbus Catholic and Pacelli live on Tuesday, and we will also have a bunch of volleyball and soccer on Thursday, and then and Saturday is regional final for volleyball. I mean, it happens really quick.
Yep.
This week, Division I teams with a bye don't play their first game until the regional final.
Yep.
So you just show up and it's hard. You got a trophy at the end of it, just on that first one. The football games, I don't know. We need to put some thought into that. The week 1, level 1 playoffs, we are a traditional highlight gathering organization just because of the sheer cost of the whole thing. But there is no doubt that some teams and some communities will sway our minds and change our opinions. So the schedule will be firm Tuesday morning at ZaleskiSports.com. The whole broadcast schedule will be out there.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
They could come Wednesday because we'll probably be in the studio here Wednesday.
We will be.
And we will talk about those games and maybe preview some of them.
There's no doubt about it. We'll be previewing volleyball regional finals and level 1 football playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned some of those communities step up and they entice us, especially come playoff time. Wapaka Comets Volleyball did just that, and thanks to the Wapaka Comets fans for making sure that you get to watch your volleyball playoffs live and free all season on Zaleski Sports. Kaukauna Galloping Goes Football, same thing. Their community stood up tall, and others do too, and will. And I just don't know all of them yet.
Yeah,
the phone's gonna ring.
Sounds good.
Wrap it up, Dan.
Yeah.
I'm out of words today.
Yeah, hopefully everybody's excited as we are. Again, if you have the opportunity, we obviously love everybody to watch what we do, but go cheer your kids on for the seniors.
Yeah. Especially playoff time.
Especially the playoff time. Yeah. Seniors last hurrah. This is it.
Yeah, somewhere near 3,000 football seniors will play their last football game on Friday.
It's crazy.
Yeah. All right, well, let's end on the sad note then.
Yeah, sad.
Sad but true, right? There we go. Hey, gang, thanks for watching. Local listings, as Dan is looking for, on ZaleskiSports.com. Check out the website, and we will see you in a gym, football field, etc. very soon. Have a great weekend, everybody.